The way people perceive the trading card game industry and just different trading card games compared to one another has fascinated me for a good period of time, man. I mean, I'm making content, I'm putting vocal and visual data onto the interwebs, and it's culminating with a lot of people who are much larger than myself, and message boards and whatever have you. Any of the ones and zeros on the internet are giving a viewpoint to consumers of internet content for trading card games. And essentially, people out there are getting a general consensus of how a game is. Is it thriving? Is it doing bad? Does it have good gameplay? Does it have good mechanics? People are learning and informing themselves about games based off of different content creators and what have you, different blogs, message threads, and whatever have you, right? But that's just a viewpoint. And a lot of times, the viewpoint on the internet is extremely wrong and just off base. And that's the main topic I want to talk about in this video right now, which is the major perception, completely wrong viewpoint of Flesh and Blood is a game that nobody plays. And I know, hearing me now, that sentence sounds really stupid. But in 2020, back in the day, back in my day, you heard that a lot from people who had not played the game, or people who played the game just aren't really good at really understanding what good gameplay is. But you heard that a lot in the interwebs with a lot of different people out there, that Flesh and Blood, oh, that's the game that nobody plays, right? And I will ask you this very simple question. How did we go from a game that nobody plays to 14 sets later and, oh wow, this is one of the best competitive games out there on the market and the best competitive scene? It really is a quandary, if you will. And I will go on off on a limb and say it is the best developed trading card game of all time. And if you don't even believe that, it's definitely in the top 5. But how did we go from like, okay, this game is one of the best games that's been developed in decades, to, oh, from the start, people were thinking, oh, this is the game that nobody plays. There's a big shift in what has transpired perception-wise to the people who are viewing Flesh and Blood. It first went from, hey, this is a game that no one plays. They're like, okay, people do play it, but it's still low market cap, to, oh wow, it's a worldwide game. People are starting to play it. And to now, in 2024, people are thinking, wow, this is one of the best, arguably the best competitive circuit out of any trading card game out there. And that's my simple question of this video, is like, how did we get from there to there? It doesn't make sense. And the reason, and then really the whole point I'm making, is the internet was completely fucking wrong. And I want to give a big congratulations to Legend Story Studios and staff for reaching a major milestone recently, a 5-year mark, 14 sets. Just congratulations, guys. It's been one hell of a ride watching what you've been doing over the years and just commentating on it and watching things grow and just seeing all the accomplishments. It's just really awesome that, you know, we can celebrate this milestone. I'm sure there's going to be many, many milestones yet to come in the future. But, you know, just going back to the whole point, right? And I'm going to rant a lot in this video. There's going to be a lot of ranting here. You have content creators out in this space. We are motivated by money because I ain't making much money on the. I'm not really making much money at all. But like, to continue justifying time aspects of video recording, you got to make money. If you're not making money, then you cannot fund your hobby, right? So you see a lot of content out there that is inspired by money, whether that be like, you know, little gifts here and there that the companies promote for the bigger channels, or oh, maybe the person has a store and they're trying to get rid of certain products, or what have you. There's money factors that are involved, and also view counts that are involved. If I want to make a video that has a high view count, I'm going to make it some really spicy video, making a really hot take that I kind of believe in, but not like super believe in, right? But I'm doing it not because I think that it represents some sort of truth out there. I'm doing it more of a sense of, well, I think I could get a lot of views on this video, right? And you have a lot of that proliferation, which really skews the overall truth aspect of the perceived market. And when you have, let's say, back in 2020, a lot of people seeing, oh, wow, Flesh and Blood cards are going up in price, you have like two different mindsets. Either, okay, maybe it's worth its salt, maybe there's something here, or maybe the general population overall doesn't really take a gander at what Flesh and Blood is and just instantly writes it off and says, oh, that's a game no one plays. That's just an investor collector thing. You know, nobody actually plays the game, which is really sad. It's crazy to think that that was a sentiment for at least a year period of time in the beginning. And I know I sound really crazy right now. I know that as the passage of time moves on, fewer and fewer people are going to remember this. But I was fucking there, man. This is what went down. And this is what a lot of people had said on the internet, you know, content creators, but message boards and what have you. People were naysaying the game. And it's very simple why Flesh and Blood has succeeded the way it has. It's because of the gameplay. It's because of the product. It's one of the best designed products on the market. And not only is it well designed, but the foundational gameplay of the game itself is just so high quality. But it just really makes you wonder and really think, why was that perception from the beginning? And the real only answer is that the internet itself is not really rooted in reality. It has a lot of different things that are showing you one thing but aren't as true as another, right? And it really just shows you that the internet can be wrong. People can be wrong. And you know, sometimes there's not a malicious aspect. If you're just a random guy and like, hey, I bought this booster box of this game and I just want to open it up and talk about it. Great, right? And a lot of times people don't have the data and the information of how many stores are running events and what have you, and what is the throughput sell rate for all these boxes. People don't have the data. So how can you expect people on the internet to be smart enough and educated enough to really understand how the health of a game is and how good a game is, right? And especially because a lot of internet people aren't really good at deciding, or not deciding, understanding what good gameplay is. It's much like if you went on Reddit and you said, hey, I have a complex brain aneurysm on a patient and they have like a marble stuck in the frontal cortex. How do I operate, right? If you get everyone's opinion, right, you're going to have a bunch of bad ideas. Some people are probably going to be like, hey, just drill into their skull and just scoop it out with a spoon. Or, you know, just do crazy stuff, right? But then the 0.001% of the people who comment on that may be neurosurgeons. And they may have that expertise of, okay, well, if you have a marble stuck in the skull, first you have to do X, Y, and Z and all this stuff. They know how to get that marble out of the skull, if that makes any sense. Long story short, there are individuals who are intelligent, who have worthwhile things to say, that lead more into the truth of what good gameplay is and what good neuroscience is, that are not really brought to the top and really promoted as much. It's, you get this aggregated lump sum of all of this mush that is just wrong. And it just gives you a bad perception, right? And a lot of times in the beginning of Flesh and Blood's history, or the beginning of when I got into Flesh and Blood, I felt a lot like Socrates or Plato with the cave allegory, whichever one of those guys did the cave allegory, where I went out of the cave, I saw, whoa, Flesh and Blood is amazing. I gotta tell people about this. And I went back into the cave, and people in the cave didn't really understand what I was talking about. And it's just interesting to see the game now, 5 years in, 14 sets, bunch of auxiliary products, worldwide game. Just the studio has like quadrupled or more in head count, and has many different departments, and has a really sexy office over there. You've seen the game grow so much over a really short period of time and become like an industry leader in competitive gameplay. It's just amazing how far it's come in a short period of time. And it really does make me think from the get-go, is like, hey, like I wasn't crazy, right? Like, there was something to this. This game does have a lot of legs. The gameplay is really damn good. And I think it'll be another 5-10 years before people finally wake up and can say, this is one of the best games that's been developed in decades, right? It's going to take time. We went from the start, which is people said, hey, this is the game that no one actually plays. It's just a collector thing, right? And now we're in like, oh, this is a game that a lot of people play. And it's one of the best competitive games out there on the market. And it's going to shift into finally, this is the best competitive game circuit on the market. I think it is already, right? I'm just saying it like it is. You can say in the comment section down below if there's a better like competitive, organized play aspect out there for other games, but I don't see that. Like, Flesh and Blood has such a robust, organized play circuit out there. I think it is the best in the industry, and people still haven't woken up to that fact and said that, straight out. And then it's going to take another 5-10 years before people finally are like, hey, yeah, this was really, really damn good gameplay. And the reason why this is important is because I think that the market overall isn't very good at identifying good gameplay. And it saddens me. It really does. Because there's a lot of really good games out there that just don't see as much love as they should. They aren't as praised, right? You have things like, let's say Netrunner, Star Wars Destiny in the mix, and Legend of the Five Rings. Some really really good games, really good gameplay, and you wonder, like, why do these games not get as good accolades and the perceptions out there? And of course, in my opinion, humbly, Flesh and Blood exceeds those games, but those games are quality games, right? But you wonder why the perception on these. It's like if you have a bunch of different, places to eat, right? And you're comparing like Arby's to like a Longhorn. There's no difference with the beef that you get and the steak that you get. There's gotta be something in the future that changes things. I hope. And I hope that people out there really truly realize that the internet is just plain fiction. I mean, there's too many, in my opinion, creators that are, doing content and doing videos out there for specific purposes of getting money, and I don't blame them. And hey, you got to do what you got to do. If you're a business, you got to do what you got to do, right? I'm just a normal guy in a normal room. I'm just, talking my ass off, ranting, at 1 o'clock in the morning. But if the content space and the people who view content and all the perception out there is skewed in different directions that is away from reality, then you really wonder what's going on here. And I know I'm sounding really far out there, but think about just the core of what I'm saying from the very beginning, right? We went from, this is the game no one plays, to this is one of the best competitive scenes out there for trading card games. In 5 years, we went from this to this. How does that happen? And the internet has this funny ability to just memory wipe, right? After 2-3 years, people start, coming and going in games, and they forget that this is what occurred. This is how people thought. This is how people felt. And that's what the importance of content out there is. You can look at different time periods of different content creators, even if they haven't made content for 2 years. You can, it's kind of like a time capsule. You can see the videos and see how people perceived things at the time. It's just beautiful, man, right? And Flesh and Blood really made a huge impact on the trading card game space. When trading card games back in the day, 2019, 2020, a lot of stores didn't really care about new card games. They thought it was too much of a risk. They'd been burned in the past. They don't want anything to do with them. And then this spur of tons of new card games, in my opinion, started with Flesh and Blood. And if you think about the 90s and you think about the golden era back in the day, what spurred that golden era was Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering came out, and it was a brand new type of game interactions, mechanics. There's a lot of innovation with that gameplay itself. Now, in my opinion, I think Magic is flawed in a good amount of ways, but for the time, it was extremely innovative, and that spurred this huge, a vast majority of games that came out in a short period of time, and a lot of them failed. And the question I think that you really have to ask is, okay, why did so many fail? Why were only a handful remaining after a short period of time? And I think that you can really pinpoint, okay, well, a lot of these games, they didn't really innovate. They didn't really do something new that was good. They didn't create new gameplay design that was really innovative, that did something really cool, right? It was just a lot of copies on copies and copies, and just, smorgasbord stuff and IP driven stuff that just was trying to, get cash as quick as possible. It wasn't as trying to do something really good. And I think that's what you've seen in the last 3-4 years with a lot of the games that come out and die off and what have you. And now we're in like a cooling off period now, it seems. But I know I've ranted a lot, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. But it's fascinating to me that there's been such a perception change in a short period of time of Flesh and Blood. And I love to see it. I'm glad that the game has been so successful and that we've seen so much growth. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot more in the future. And I just want to leave it off and say again, congrats to Legend Story Studios. 5 years celebration soon. Yeah, it's quite an amount of time. It's quite an amount of sets. And I'm just really glad to see the game growing and continuing on. No matter what the internet fiction says, game's doing really good. Cheers, man.